This week on Moulz Mel at the Movies, we discuss the direct-to-video 2012 film Mac and Devin Go to High School, directed by Dylan Brown and starring Snoop Dogg, Wiz Khalifa, Mike Epps, and Tierra Marie. A comedy that follows two high school students, one overachiever struggling to write his valedictorian speech, the other, a senior now going on his 15th year of school, as they go through the highs and the lows of the public school system. This week, on Moulz Mel at the Movies, let's go see Mac and Devin Go to High School. And welcome back to Moulz Mel at the Movies.
I saw what you did there, the highs and lows. It's nice. It's nice. Good stuff.
Mel, how are you today?
How you doing? A little high today.
A little high today? A little stoned today?
Yeah. Nah, I'm kidding, folks. I don't smoke, but I did have to drink a Red Bull because this movie, if you can call it that,
yeah,
I had to wake myself up a bit to talk about it.
Well, as is customary here, let's just go ahead and give our ratings. And before we do that, you want to break down what those numbers actually mean once more?
Yeah, I guess we should do that. So yeah, the rating system as adopted from, the show that we mainly do, Rap Rankings. Just apply it to films. So it's 1 to 10 scale. These numbers do not reflect the quality of a movie, as that is indeterminable. Instead, each number reflects a level of enjoyment. In short, here's what each number means. 10 means it's a perfect movie. To me, one of my favorite movies of all time. 9 means I love it. 8 means I like it a lot. 7 means I like it. 6 means it's alright. I don't dislike it, but I can't say that I like it. 5 means I feel practically nothing about it. 4 means it's not the worst movie I've ever seen, but I dislike it. 3 means I dislike it. 2 means I hate it. And 1 means I absolutely can't stand it. One of the worst movies I've ever seen. And side note, if we had a plus or a minus to any of those numbers, it's basically a way of saying like it's a light or strong version of that number. 6 plus, strong 6, 8 minus, light 8. Or it's an indicator that the rating could go up or down in the future because these ratings aren't static. So, a 6 plus could go up to a 7 minus, in the future. Although, I don't think that's going to happen here. So, yeah. I might have just spoiled my rating there. Can I just tell him what it is? This may shock you, but Mac and Devin Go to High School, for me, 6 plus.
Wow.
6 plus.
The generous man has logged in. The Mel pack
Generous
is in the
Mel.
air.
They haven't called me that in a long time, but Generous Mel is here.
Well, I think that it's interesting. Last week we did 8 Mile, and I gave that film a 7 out of 10. You gave it an 8 out of 10, giving us a weighted rating of a 7.5 out of 10.
Right.
And I'm going to meet you one notch below where you are yet again with a 5 minus.
Wow, okay. All right. It's giving us, a 5.5 out of 10. On the star scale, what's that? A 2.25 out of 5?
The stars aren't working that way on Letterboxd, apparently. So if you're joining us from Letterboxd,
stars. I don't blame them for not doing quarter stars. But,
they don't do that. So thank you all if you're joining us from Letterboxd. That would give us a weighted rating of, 55%.
Yeah, 2 thumbs down. Basically,
2 thumbs down on this one for sure.
But
yeah, we can get into it, man. I mean, Mac and Devin Go to High School. You said if this is a film.
You know what? You told me about this going in. You're like, this is... How did you describe this? It being sort of a low-budget film. I was expecting it to be, like, worse than it was in terms of production value. I was expecting, honestly, like... handheld camera from like 2006 level cinematography. But it
Oh
was
no, that's gonna come when we do Kill a Season later on in the season.
which is a better movie.
I agree.
It's
I do
crazy,
agree.
but yeah, this is like it's shot in HD. Like I think the angles are reflective of it being a film. Like it felt like I was watching a film.
There are moments, especially like a good example is just like when the Mac character played by Snoop Dogg is first introduced. There's like, so let me just talk about this director, okay? Dylan Brown, who
poor guy.
Dylan Brown is a guy who is pretty much like a Snoop Dogg only director. I've checked out his filmography. In fact, he directed a movie back in, I think, 2005 called Bossin' Up with Snoop Dogg, which was actually a pretty enjoyable direct-to-video movie.
So he's sort of like, I guess, would you say like DJ Scoob-Doo is for Lil Wayne? Sometimes. I don't know if he still is.
Or I'm trying to think of who that guy was that was doing those Ross videos. But yeah, either way.
I know what you're talking about, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just, you know, he went originally by Pook Brown. That's what he was. Pook Brown was credited to Bossin' Up. And I didn't know until this week when I went in to see who directed this that the credit was Dylan Brown. I opened up his filmography and there was Bossin' Up. So I'm like, Pook Brown is Dylan Brown. Snoop allowed him to use his actual name after a while, I guess. In fact, I used to think... I
don't know if I would have been in a hurry to do that if I was Mr. Brown.
I thought that originally Pook Brown might be like a Snoop Dogg alias that he was just using as a director himself.
Okay. So
this is a man who has directed multiple films and music videos for Snoop Dogg. And I think that he does a good job in the scenes that are made to look more like music videos. Like, for instance, when Devin, played by Wiz Khalifa, goes to the strip club. And we get that Love Rant, Beat the Pussy Up song.
I pop for that. Because that like, song, that Love Rant song. That,
like, but that the way it was shot, though, with like the red lighting and stuff like that, there are moments in this film where, for instance, like a hallucination turns into a music video. And those moments, I think very competent music video directing is on display. It's in the expositional scenes mostly that I think this director lacks any sort of directorial flair whatsoever. And whoever was in charge of, just in general, a director is not a cameraman. And a director is also not a cinematographer. So I'm thinking about whoever color corrected or lack thereof this film. I mean, the scene, for instance, where I think Snoop Dogg is approached by the teacher, by the principal, who it's, insinuated that he's having some sort of sexual relationship with. You can tell that scene is raw footage straight out of a Canon 7D.
That was when that scene happened. I'm like, this must be what Moulz is talking about. Yeah, it's just like a static
shot pointed at the camera, just sitting on a table. And I mean, the most egregious thing of the whole scene is that I can tell that it's totally raw footage. Like, it hasn't been tweaked at all, and it looks like it. Like, it just has a different. So there's what I would say is like inconsistent cinematography, color balancing, whatever you want to call it. Just sometimes it looks like an actual film, other times it does not.
Right. You speak about his like lack of directorial flair. Definitely, because I got the sense watching this film, it's sort of like, like before they said, it's like, what's the scene about? All right. And then they just shoot it. It's like, it's not like there's any added, gravity by way of the camera work or any like you said, flair. It's just like, let's shoot what this is about and move on.
I have one other major issue with this film, which is I I have plenty of issues with this film, but two major ones. One of them was just I don't like the look of this film at all, and some scenes are like embarrassing, honestly.
I wasn't really bothered by it. I was expecting
that,
to be, but I was okay.
Secondly, which this is a big thing, arguably even bigger than the look and the direction of the film. It's interesting, Mel. I watched two films last night.
Uh-huh.
I watched Mac and Devin Go to High School. And then I was hoping to watch something good, so I watched this Changing Lanes movie with Samuel L. Jackson and Ben Affleck.
Mm-hmm.
I had never seen it before. I had always seen the trailers back in the day, but it's one that just I had missed. So I thought, let me clear my palate from the Mac and Devin experience and try to watch something good. And, I ended up having the problem to varying degrees with both of these movies. In Changing Lanes, which I think was at the very least a pretty engrossing and interesting film and well shot and what have you, Samuel L. Jackson completely renegades Ben Affleck on the acting tip. Like, Affleck's acting is just simply not up to par with Samuel L. Jackson's. In this film, I mean, the stakes are much lower here, but man, Wiz Khalifa does not come off like a star, like on camera, as an actor. I mean, as a rapper, yeah, for sure. And I mean, he has the success to back all of it up. But as an actor, I found his performance to be, how should I put this? The level of acting I've come to expect from pornos with storylines in them.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was going to say I saw two films last night myself, Mac and Devin, and another film that I probably can't mention on the show, but hey, you just did it. So, yeah, I mean, well, to his awareness, I would say at the end of the movie, like when they start doing the bloopers or whatever, he mentions like, this is my first time doing anything like that or anything like acting at all. And Snoop is like,
there's a problem.
He should win a Golden Globe. I'm like,
Yeah, they're all joking around. They're all like, oh, you're a natural. You're amazing. And it's one of those moments where I'm just like, damn, they fucking led that kid astray. Like, they could have just told him, like, you don't really come off totally natural on screen. It's something you're going to need to work on if you want to keep doing it. But maybe your most diehard fans are going to enjoy this, and that's it.
Well, you know what? I agree with you. He's not like an actor, but like, I think because I didn't go in expecting the movie to be great, and the fact that it isn't, I mean, it fits. Like, for me, it's like, he puts forth enough effort for me to be like,
this is what I was saying about, I mean, Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck was fine in Changing Lanes, but I thought Sam Jackson was great. I was shocked. It was one of his best performances, and I'd never seen this film before. So, I was like, damn, like, there's no way that Affleck's acting in this film can compete. It almost lacks believability. And that's where I felt about, and this is a much lesser, like I said, like lesser stakes, but Snoop Dogg is a natural. He is a star in every scene that he's in, even if the material that he's given is subpar. And I mean, you were talking about the blooper reel at the end, which, I mean, this movie is only an hour and 14 minutes to begin with, but the last 13 minutes of this movie are basically just a blooper reel. But you see how Snoop punches up the dialogue. Like, he adds little things. I don't know if you caught that. Like, that scene where they had the giant joint, and he was talking about big, succulent, and then he was, like, ad-libbing. He's like, and then I'm going to be like, I'm going to do this noise. And that wasn't in the script. Like, he's going line by line, trying to punch this up a little bit and make it into something more. But I feel like the only person in the film who has the caliber of screen presence that Snoop does is Mike Epps, who's not really in the film very often.
Agreed.
Everyone else comes across like a non-trained, unprofessional actor. And I mean, casting Tierra Marie, who was previously known as the First Lady of The Rock, back when Jay-Z was president of Def Jam, somehow she's playing, what is she, the professor, Mrs. Hunt or something like that?
The new... Speaking of that, I'm glad you brought that up. So she introduces herself as the new substitute teacher, and I'm like, that's not a thing. You just a substitute teacher. You wouldn't be a new substitute teacher, you know? Like, yeah, it's just that kind of thing. But like that sort of ridiculous dialogue adds to my appreciation of the movie. Yeah, that's who she's playing, Mrs. Huck or whatever. Yeah, it's this as a movie, like, it's really mainly a 6+ because admittedly there were elements where like I laughed or like I chuckled. It wasn't a completely humorless affair, although there was a lot of stupid humor in it.
I did laugh.
Like, some things actually did land for me.
I laughed 3 times by the end of the film.
I think I did. I think I laughed 3 times. Exactly.
One of them was when Snoop Dogg is explaining something to Wiz, and he was like, you take the kush and you take the purple, and then the voice gets pitched up and he's like, purple kush. I thought it was funny. Just the timing, the comedic timing, the pitch correction on it. It was just, the rare moment in this film where the comedic timing landed. We got to talk about slow burn. I think we're putting the horse ahead of the race or something like that. Whatever they say.
However the phrase goes. So yeah, slow burn, the CGI joint.
I think calling him CGI might be a disrespect to CGI. I mean, this guy looks like, the graphics look like a computer game from 1996.
Well, I think even a little better than that. It's like a weird, how like the PSP was like sort of touted, at least I remember it being touted, as like a mix between PS1 and PS2 graphics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is like, it feels like it's Windows 95, but like Windows XP, like somewhere in the middle, perhaps Windows 98.
It's like, one that was in the middle.
And it's like, and I guess voiced by Mystical.
Okay. Well, I think this is so he opens the movie basically saying, you're going to have to smoke some weed to get through this thing. I'm just letting you guys know ahead of time.
And up front, I'm like, oh, I don't smoke. Like, I might really be doing this viewing wrong. Like, this might just not land for me because apparently I have to be high for this. He's calling me a dummy if I'm not. And I'm like, well, I can't do anything about this. I don't smoke, but, yeah, extended monologue about it's a weed movie. You gotta be high. His name's Slow Burn. And I'm just thinking like,
at first, I don't care for this cartoon CGI joint. I'm just like, all right, dude, real movies don't start like this.
Well, they can, but they're usually better executed, than this. Sure.
I just feel like the disclaimer at the top basically telling us like, hey, are you inebriated? Because if not, this might just be a rough watch for you.
I'm just tripping off how his name is Slow Burn, but it's like, I'm just thinking in the phrase itself, slow burn. You're not a slow burn if you never get lit,
Well, I think
it's like the movie maybe never
is like just rolling papers are known to be slow burning.
Well, yeah, no, I know what like the tie-in is supposed to be, but it's just a ironic phrase, So I'm like, maybe the movie's going to be a slow burn. Maybe like it'll grow on me. And in a way though, it does. Like, let me just be clear. It's a 6+ because this is a movie that I don't want to ever see again. Okay. I think to be a 7, it has to be a movie I'd be willing to sit down and watch again.
But you didn't hate it.
Right, I didn't hate it. Like, honestly, this is, and shout out my boy, this might be a Cena and Mel movie. Like, this is something we would have watched in high school and enjoyed it. Because it's stupid, but I think in the best way. To where like if we would have watched it together, it's like we would have found it to be hilarious. Because like a lot of the humor is like dirt terrible. Like there's innuendo, like the scene you mentioned with Snoop, like with the like humongous
what's
joint.
The name of the guy, the disciplinarian guy who's like trying to hate on?
Yeah, the assistant principal. What's his name? Like
Skin Flute.
I wrote it. Skin Flute.
Dr. Skin Flute.
Which I'm guessing is a penis reference.
You've guessed correctly. So
yeah, and it's
I'll just say this though: in the pantheon of like weed movies, right? I've been thinking about this past week. So like, to me, Friday and Half Baked are like 1A, 1B for me. Like, they're the best weed movies. The best stoner comedies, if you will. Then, underneath that, I never really got into Cheech and Chong, and similarly for Pineapple Express, not really my thing, but they do feel like movies, you know, to me. Then below that is How High, which is a major studio motion picture. It's a Universal production. So How High is really stupid, just like this movie is really stupid, but it's more competently made.
Yeah.
And then there's one more thing I wanted to mention about this film before I forget. The music from the soundtrack is featured pretty prominently in the movie. Young, Wild, and Free especially, which gets brought up like 4 times by the end of the movie. But there's this weird thing where like the music is playing underneath every scene, but not loud enough for you to hear it, but not low enough for you to not hear it. It's like at this, like, almost like a radio interview when you hear rappers come on the radio and like the radio station's playing beats underneath them or something.
Underneath, yeah.
That's kind of like what's going on here throughout the entire movie. And I have to say, not a fan, not very filmic. Like, I feel like I'm watching a bunch of skits taped together.
Definitely not very filmic, but I actually, whoever mixed it did a good job because it wasn't like distracting to me at all. I noticed it, but like I wasn't distracted.
I found it distracting in the sense that most movies either go for a score or they just don't at all. But I guess they needed something because some of this stuff kind of falls flat, you know?
If anything, it helped the movie along. You know, maybe like 15 minutes in, I was like, this is going to be a slog. Like, this is going to be hard. But surprisingly, by the end, I was like, you know, that wasn't as rough of a watch as I expected. Like, let me get this out of the way, too. Like, it's not the best plot. Like, it's not really, you know, I'm not engrossed by this at all. So that's why I was expecting it to be, because it sets up very early what this is going to be about. Like, Mac and Devin, it's like 2 clashing worlds. Mac's like a stoner, he's a cool boy. Devin's like the nerd, he's preppy, he's never smoked.
Right. And Mac is kind of like Van Wilder because he's been at the school for 15 years.
yeah, he's been at high school for 15. You know, and they get paired up together in like what, their chemistry class or something for like the final project, and I'm like, okay, and they're gonna like imprint upon each other and like Real Breakfast Club-esque type stuff, like, you know, worlds collide. By the way,
I just hate to keep nailing all these criticisms on the film, but I don't think that they sold Wiz as a nerd for long enough that when all of a sudden he smokes weed, he's like rapping in the hallway or like he gets tatted up, and I'm just like, where is all of this coming from? His personality has completely changed.
Completely. Yeah, completely. You know, like he settles from Devin into like real life Wiz Khalifa, like very fast. I will say though, like clever of them to sort of like, I guess, hide his tattoos with the fact that he's wearing like button ups and things. And like his face tats, like makeup.
They cover him up. Yeah, they put some cover up on him.
And you know, they're able to, you know, finally stop doing that.
But it's just, and like, I know this is a stupid comedy. There's no reason why I should be reading that much into it, but like, you can't get that much tattooing done in one session.
Of course, I thought the same thing. I don't have any tats, and I'm like, there's no way he did that in a night.
I have small tattoos that took like 2 hours on my leg that like, I'm just imagining getting full sleeves, full body, neck, all that stuff is something that would most likely take place over like 5 or 6 sessions.
You know, and here he is just walking out like... you know, and I'm like,
I guess you have to forgive these sort of things in these movies because nothing's meant to be taken seriously to begin with.
Right. So I'm like, I'm not really tripping. I'm like, yeah, that's not possible, but sure. It's, you know, it's a goofy, dumb movie. And, you know, to that respect, you know, like the back to the slow burn character, I'm just like, when he comes on very quickly, I'm like...
You mean initially?
Initially, yeah. When we first are introduced to him, when he opens the movie, I'm kind of like, you know. And then I'm like, I don't love this character, but like I respect him.
He made me laugh at least once.
Right. And I'm just like, this is dumb in a completely inoffensive way, and I'm fine here.
I don't know if it's the one where he's like dressed up like he's in the military or the one before that, but he said something that made me laugh. So then I messaged you and was like, hey, Mel, I think I like Slow Burn now. I think, he might be my favorite character. But by the end of the film, he goes on this whole, like, I don't know, like, kind of gets on his soapbox a little bit. And I just decided, like, I don't like you. I don't. I was right to trust my gut and realize you sucked.
He was completely inoffensive to me. Like, he added...
He got a 50% takeaway
really
from me. He had 4 segments. He had the intro, he had 2 throughout the film, and then 1 at the end. The intro and the outro were trash. The intro was him making excuses for why this film's about to suck and trying to blame you for not being high. And then the second one at the end is him getting, like, on his soapbox and moralizing. Like, I want to hear a lecture from a fucking cartoon joint. But I was a fan of the 2 that actually were in the film, even though it's odd to cut away to a cartoon joint 2 times in the middle of a narrative feature. But hey, we're talking about Mac and Devin here.
We're young, wild, and free. Anything can happen.
Oh, young, wild, and free. A film, a song that is played throughout.
Talk
the
about
movie.
A motif.
I mean, it's brought up. That exact bit of dialogue. So what? We get drunk. So what? We smoke weed. Is brought up, and I'm like, okay, I get what they're doing here. Then you hear it in the background. Then you hear it in another scene in the background. And then finally at the end, you get that big musical performance, which I have to say, even the old Grinch Moulz, by the end of the young, wild, and free performance, it's a combination of, all right, we've kind of heard this so many times throughout this movie. Yeah. I have a right to be slightly annoyed by it, but it's all the characters from the movie dancing. You have to like it.
You know what? A spoiler for the soundtrack review. The movie got the song over. It was at a 6+ for me.
What, and Young, Wild, and Free?
Yeah.
You have Young, Wild, and Free as a 6+?
I did. And then the movie got it over. I'm like, you know what?
I'm not going to say the movie didn't get it over for me because, or rather, I'm not going to say the movie got it over for me because it didn't. But, in fact, I think I simultaneously liked the end scene and thought it was a nice scene. While also, like, I don't know, man, I've had this song drilled into my head so much over the last hour, I'm tempted to change my rating, which I gave the film, since we're talking about Young, Wild, and Free, I gave the song a 7+. So I was considering getting that plus out of there. I'm still debating it. I mean, we haven't done the review yet. But, yeah, good. I like the shit at the end, Young, Wild, and Free. I have to say, though, it goes on a little too long. And then did we really need 13 minutes of fucking bloopers and B-roll?
I'm going to be honest with you. I cut it off. I don't even know what the bloopers were. I'm going to be real with you. After Snoop's like Golden Globe thing, I'm like, all right, you know what? I'll just let Moulz tell me what happened with the bloopers. This ain't the movie.
Nothing to tell you. It's self-indulgent.
These are those 6+ elements. If it wasn't a 6+, of course I'd stay for the bloopers. But I'm good. I've seen the movie. I'm out of here.
I thought one thing when I was watching this, and you ain't Rush Hour.
That's for sure. Those are bloopers you gotta watch. But here, you don't gotta watch them.
You don't gotta watch because I struggled my way. Like, I don't need to see what didn't make the cut. And I certainly don't need to see people fucking up their lines. Like, it's over. Just accept the fact that you made a movie that's an hour and 2 minutes and that it's not really an hour and 15-minute movie.
Just on the thought of just like, what you were saying about like, yeah, it's like, I don't want to see the bloopers here because I barely want to see the stuff that actually made the cut. The plot isn't much. there's nothing to really get invested in. There's no tension. That's a main factor of why this is going to be a 6+ for me. Because I think to be a 7, I gotta care.
There's no
I don't
conflict.
really care what's
I mean,
happening here.
You think about
there's a conflict. I don't care about it.
Well, it's not played as a conflict. It's a conflict in the script, but
we're supposed to think right. Like he's worried about like his valedictorian speech and his project.
Now I'm thinking, here's another great stoner movie, Harold and Kumar. I'd maybe make that 1C, along with Half Baked and Friday. Now let's think about those movies. Friday, okay? There's a central conflict.
You worried about the money.
Yeah.
Big Worm's money.
Yes, exactly.
You care. Plus, you feel that tension.
Plus, you got Debo going around like Mr. X and Resident Evil. I mean, you got to worry about this guy, too. Half Baked. Their friend goes to jail. They got to get him out of jail. It's important. Their friend's locked in jail, and he's getting, like, things are happening to him in jail. And then, finally...
And a testament to Harold and Kumar's greatness. And, I mean, I'm a grease man. I love fast food anyway, so maybe I'm not the guy to talk. But you want them to get the White Castle.
You want them to get to White Castle, but there's also other things at stake. Like, Harold is treated very poorly by his coworkers who just, like, treat him like absolute shit. They stick him with all the work for the weekend. Kumar, his father wants him to go to this interview to become a doctor, but he doesn't want to be a doctor. So there's a race to kind of get these things done while also getting to White Castle. There are stakes. There's emotions. There's conflict.
Right.
There's, a good comedy to me involves, or a good anything, a good horror movie,
just a good film
drama,
in general.
Film.
There have to be stakes.
There needs to be stakes. There needs to be tension of some sort. There needs to be that feeling where it's like, oh man, I can't. Even that movie I was talking about that I watched last night as well, Changing Lanes, I was like, oh man, something's got to happen for one of these guys. Like Sam Jackson's got to fix this credit problem now, and he's got to get his family back. And Ben Affleck better figure something out too, because he might end up in jail if he doesn't figure this out. So, there's stakes. I'm like, oh, fuck. What's going to happen? I'm not going to say it's on the level of like Uncut Gems of like building the tension or anything. But again, you want to see how it plays out. In this film, I don't really care what happens to these characters. Just like we're moving, we're just floating from scene to scene.
Exactly.
And I think it works best. This is what I'll say in its defense. It works best when it fully leans into the stoner stuff. When it basically is half music video, half Snoop and Wiz just smoking weed and joking around.
Right. It's exactly like when it almost the stupider it gets is when I appreciate it the most. Or when, like you said, Mike Epps or people with actual, Snoop are like carrying the movie along. Like, it's just like everything else is just kind of whatever. Like,
right. I mean, we got like Andy Milonakis in there. When I see like an Andy Milonakis,
I like somewhat. Like he's all right. I rock with Andy. I have no problem.
This is what I'll say about Andy,
but his role is kind of just.
He's not very funny in this movie, but like Mike Epps, he adds a little bit of an air of credibility to the project. I think.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh, okay, he was on TV. Like, he's an actor. I know who he is.
Right.
There's not enough of that in this film.
Right.
The film could have actually been better, I think, with like someone to do more post-production on it and a few more actors of note to carry the film along.
Yeah. The reason it gets as high as a 6+ is because despite all of those factors, like I still reached the end and wasn't depressed or just like, I need that hour back.
It's an hour.
It was just kind of like, okay.
That's the best thing I can say about it is it's an hour. It almost goes away before it really starts to grate on your nerves.
Yeah.
So I can't
like
even
I said,
say
I thought it was going to grate 15 minutes in, but like surprisingly by the end, I was like, okay, all right.
I just think it's a total,
it's
a total
painful.
mixed bag for me. I give it a 5- because I feel no ways about it as a film. Like I don't really feel an intense feeling of like dislike towards it. I also don't really enjoy it. It's not something that I feel like I'm going to go back and watch ever again. And man, when I was saying last week that 8 Mile lacks stakes, I mean, Jesus. Well, I said 8 Mile lacked true stakes because at the end of the day, he wins a rap battle in a room and goes
I was
back
invested
to his
in
trailer.
8 Mile. It works as a movie in that regard. This, not so much. Like, yeah, I guess like by the end, it's like, all right, how's he going to get out of this? You know, you see, well, I listened to the soundtrack before the movie, so I knew what the catalyst was going to be to get Devin's project to work. It's weed, obviously. You know, folks,
but again, it's not even
the lesson.
It's in every single comedy. Every comedy, the two people who come together end up breaking apart for a brief period before eventually coming back together and giving you the big payoff at the end.
Well, in that moment too, I'm glad you brought that up because like they fall apart when they both get arrested because Mac takes Devin to the brothel, you know, and they get arrested and Devin just like leaves him in there. Mac's like, oh, it's like that. Like after, you know, all this coming together and like this sort of friendship we have now. And Devin's like, yeah, I guess it's like that. And they don't see each other again. And Mac goes home and Devin's project is still there. And that's where he like this ash in the blunt in there and like the light bulb lights up and he's like, oh, I figured it out. But like they don't even reconcile actually. I don't know if you noticed, like they never like patch things up. Like, they don't even talk again, like, until the end where Wiz is giving his speech. And, like, Matt theoretically should still be upset with him for, like, abandoning him in jail.
Which is, by the way, his valedictorian speech. So what, we get drunk. So what, we smoke weed.
Young, Wild, and Free lyrics.
Again.
And Mac, like, you know, like, points at him like, yeah, like, I taught him that. But it's like, you should be mad at him still. Like, y'all never patched up.
You never had the true reconciliation moment. You just kind of came
that
through
you have in every movie.
In the clutch and put the weed inside of the chemical and lit the lamp
And he
up.
never even told Mac about that, right? Or no, he did. He can't. Well, he didn't tell him. He just showed up at the end. Like,
yeah, he showed him. He came through and he saved the project, basically.
Right. And what's crazy is Devin doesn't even do anything with it. The Greenberg kid ends up stealing it.
Yeah.
Like, you should be like a trillionaire. Like, you just came up with this renewable energy source and you don't do anything with it. Like, you know, like, but like, it's Mac and Devin go to high school. So, like, I'm not actually expecting any logical anything to take place here. You know, speaking of like the sort of ending here, it's like, you know, Andy Milonakis' character ends up, you know, screwing Wiz's now ex-girlfriend. She ends up being like, I guess, a loose woman, a woman of the night.
Previously, she's saving herself for
she's
marriage, and she can
uptight,
only
but like
wants to do like anal with him until they get married.
Which was gross because she's like midway in the movie. This is supposed to be humorous, but I just found it to be gross. Like, she pulls out the enema. She's like, all the fun, but it'll be mess-free this time. And I'm like, implying you weren't using an enema before? Like, that's gross, you know? But, yeah, you know, it's just like Mrs. Huck, I guess.
A lot of the jokes just don't land for me here. They just don't. I just sit there stone face like
there are some that do. To its credit, there are some that do, and I was glad for that. But like, the movie has no tension, the plot sucks. It's just a bunch of ridiculous moments one after another to varying degrees of effectiveness.
So the scene we used in our trailer to promote season 4 is a scene that I know you got a big kick out of while we were doing the editing.
Yeah.
How did you, I mean, that's, for, you know, those of you who don't know, it's the scene in the film
where he gets high for the first time.
Where he gets high for the first time because he eats a little bit of the brownie that Mac gives to him.
Yeah, much better on mute as I was editing the trailer. Okay. It was much funnier just watching it with no sound and like the camera swirling and Mac pokes his head in. It's like much better on mute. But there were funny moments in the movie for sure. And I appreciate that. Otherwise, this would have been a completely joyless experience, and it probably would have got that 5 or maybe the 4.
If there was absolutely nothing, I'll say this: if like Snoop Dogg mailed it in more, and we didn't get that like final musical number, you know, I don't know, man. Like,
could have been,
you know, and you know, luckily there were a few moments that, you know, they got me to laugh, but they were few and far between. I mean, it's an hour-long movie, so they average one laugh every 20 minutes from me.
So one laugh every 20-minute average, and that's so lame, you know. Takeover reference. But, yeah, To bring back the segment from last week,
Bobby?
I don't even remember what it was. No, don't do that. I don't even remember what the segment was called. Something about parts that made me laugh. Whatever. Moments that made Mel laugh.
Okay.
I'll just quickly run through the moments in this film that actually got a chuckle out of me. Let's see. Mike Epps towards the beginning, where he has like the kids lined up at the board and the assistant principal comes in. It's just his delivery of the line, like he's like, I guess afraid of the principal, and he's like, "See, look how I got him looking." Just like as they're lined up against the board. Funny to me. Mike Epps is an actual comedian, though.
Mike Epps also pronounces his name differently, like not skin flute. He's like skine flut or like skine flute, like so it doesn't sound like perverted.
Okay.
So that was a nice touch. That was a nice touch as well. But again, a professionally trained actor.
Right. Snoop, he had a good one-liner when he's like sat down by the assistant principal who's trying to nail him like all throughout the movie. And he's like, "You know what I'm writing right now?" And he's like, "An order for some medium-sized condoms." That made me laugh. It's a funny one-liner to me. What else? I don't know if you noticed when they were in the Marley Learning Center.
Yes.
With like he walks in, Mac walks in, and like the old white lady's like, "You can't do that in here," and like he ends up talking to her, and he's like, "Well, I got like, you know what I like Granny Poonanny."
Yeah, listen, that exchange popped me for sure.
Yeah, I laughed.
That was one of the 3 times I laughed. Two out of the three times I laughed had to do with Snoop. One was because of the cartoon, and one was because of Mike Epps.
Well, Devin makes me laugh as they're like studying. He gets up to go to the vending machine. He's like, "Give me my candy, motherfucker." He puts some money in there. And he's like, "My blood sugar is low." And I'm like, "Does he have diabetes?" Like, what's going on here? This wasn't discussed. A thing that popped me that only you will understand here, the people listening won't. I don't know if you noticed, but they play this noise that's in a certain man's album by the name of This Perfect Life. It's at the end of a song where it's like...
Yes. Same noise. The digital...
Same noise.
It sounds like someone dialing...
Sounds like an alien transmission of some sort.
Someone dialing on like an outer extraterrestrial phone line or something.
Phone line. I'm like, oh, I know that noise, but only you would understand. Another thing that popped me is he was talking to Devin, or Devin was like talking about a speech. He's like, "Everybody wants me to talk about the good times I had in high school." And Mac was like, "But you ain't have no good times." And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, I can relate. Avion Crockett as Captain Cush, much like Slow Burn, like not funny, but he does have his moments.
Oh, I have to tell you, I disagree. Totally unfunny. I felt like I was
unfunny until the Bin Laden part. It made me laugh, where he was like, it got him shot in the head by the Navy SEALs because he was high, something like that. I don't know. I laughed. It was funny to me.
I thought the outfit, the whole thing. I'm like, you want this? I felt like he was trying too hard to get the laugh. Never liked that.
Oh, he was trying too hard, but he got one. Mac, Snoop Dogg, if you will, telling Mike Epps' character, when you come here in the morning, your breath smell like cigarettes, booty, and donuts.
that was good.
That was funny. Ty Dolla $ign, who had a cameo. Many rappers had. YG was in this.
Tyga.
Tyga was in it. Ty Dolla $ign shows up at Mac's house when they do the weed competition, like they're smoking. And his facial expressions were cracking me up. Like his face when I forgot who blew the weed and formed Saturn out of a cloud of smoke. Like he looked so mesmerized. I laughed out loud. Ty Dolla $ign, a pretty man, pretty eyes, funny facial expressions.
He does have nice eyes.
Very nice eyes. Should I put him when we were making a discussion last week about most attractive? Well,
he's not a rapper.
Well, he can rap. He can rap.
He's not a rapper. Come on.
He's not a rapper. If he was, I'd put him in most attractive rappers. This was stupid. This was gross but funny. When Andy's character, Andy Milonakis, put the blunt in the old girl's butt crack, and she farted, and he inhaled it, and he was like, "Shotgun," and Snoop was like, "Tooted and pooted." This is that stupid comedy that is funny.
Did not find that shit funny.
It was
at
funny
all.
to me. It was
CGI fart cloud, the brown dust cloud that came out of her butt.
It was ridiculous.
Wasn't a fan.
It's ridiculous.
It's too stupid for me. I'm 33 years old. Shout out from all.
As it started, I'm like, oh, come on. But by the end, like, of the segment, I'm like, okay, this is just dumb enough to work for me.
Too dumb. Just dumb enough for me to not fuck with it.
And I respect that, because that's how it felt like it was going to be for me. And then I cracked. It was stupid. Everyone in there laughing. Snoop's tooted and pooted line, it just got me by the end. Another part that should have been unfunny, when they were in the, what was it, like the massage parlor or wherever, and like Devin's girlfriend Ashley called, and Mac was like, I'm gonna take you to like Pimpateria or something, and like he starts calling her bitch a bunch of times, and I'm like, okay, misogyny isn't funny. But what the misogyny that was funny, he handed the phone back to me. He was like, here, I just saved bitch in there. It's one button, one touch. I'm like, that's funny. What else? What made me laugh? The idea that getting F'd in the A means you preserve your virginity. Funnily enough, I've heard this in real life when I was going to the Catholic school. Yeah,
that's a yo-yo-yo classic, bro.
It's a yo-yo-yo classic. Folks, if you don't know who the yo-yo-yos are, it's white people who mock black people in AAVE because they think it makes them down or cool or whatever. Maybe they're just being a-holes, but yeah, they love that. Like, I actually heard that in real, and I remember thinking, like, no, in the eyes of God, that's not going to hold up. Okay, like, nice try, but no, getting booty penetrated is still losing your virginity in my book.
I'd say it's more hardcore than losing your virginity.
Yeah, I would think.
Unless you're gay, then it's just
that's just regular sex.
It's just the losing your virginity. But if you're not, and you're taking it in the butt, or you're receiving it in the butt, I feel like that's a little more of an extreme situation.
It seems more extreme to me.
Than
what do I know? I'm a virgin, so.
Well, you don't know much, but what did Devin know?
He didn't know anything until suddenly he knew everything.
All right, and I gotta say, this is another minor quibble here. Why'd they have to call him Devin? We all know Devin the dude. Like, what are we trying to say? Like, a guy named Devin's a loser or something? Like, what are we doing?
I don't know. I don't
like it was Mac and Devin. What is Mac and Devin? Why can't it? Why can't it be Mac and Steven or something?
Why couldn't it? What's his real name? Cameron. Isn't his real name
Mac and Cameron? Yeah, or what? What's Calvin and Cameron or something?
Yeah, Calvin and Cameron go to high school. You got alliteration there. Listen, it's too late now. They already released it. But there isn't much left here that made me laugh. Greenberg, when it's revealed that weed is the catalyst, he's like, motherfucker. That made me laugh.
I feel like I've seen that guy in other movies. Wasn't a fan of him in this movie, though. He just wasn't fun.
He wasn't great. He really did nothing, added nothing. But Mike Epps, he was pretty funny in here, telling the kids breath smell like adult toys. And when the principal came in, assistant principal, was trying to get Mac, and he was like, you had the cheat sheet or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
and Mike Epps, who gave it to him, was trying to pretend he didn't know. He was like, nah, Mr. Johnson. He's a comedian. Mike Epps has a natural comedic timing. He's a funny guy. That's pretty much it. That was everything that made me laugh in the movie. So, like, there were moments, clearly, a handful of moments, but 6+ on this Mac and Devin. I don't even know did I hit the buzzers? I didn't. 6+ for me, and what was it? 5? I think I did hit the buzzer. We're gonna hit him again. 5-. Yeah, man. Mac and Devin go to high school. It didn't kill me to watch it. I don't ever want to watch it again. That's pretty much all I got.
It could have been on par with How High if it was produced by like a real studio and there was some money behind it. It's under that for me. It's not a good weed movie when you compare it to the other weed movies that exist. I think that also the idea that it came out 7 months after the soundtrack leads me to believe that it's the least important element of the two things. because usually you put out a soundtrack the week before or the week after a movie comes out. You capitalize on the fact that the movie has been released. People see the movie, hear the songs in it, and then want to buy the soundtrack. That's usually how it works.
Right.
This one, they just gave you the soundtrack and they said, listen, we're still sculpting as far as the movie goes, but bear with us.
Oh, not still sculpting. That's a Moulz Mel inside joke. Yeah.
So,
oh, man. Oh, yeah, that was weird when you told me that, like, releasing the soundtrack. So
5- from me. I think this will probably be the worst thing we review this whole season. Although the production value of Kill a Season certainly is absolutely worse than this film.
Yeah.
But this one is not funny enough to be a comedy that I'd come back to, and just amateurish enough for me to disregard its existence after this episode is over.
I agree. So not as bad of a time at the movies as I was expecting, but definitely not a movie I ever need to see again, So that's it for me. It sounds like that's it from you. So
just trying to make sure there wasn't anything else that I missed here. Yeah, I think I covered everything in some capacity. So, yeah, Mac and Devin Go to High School. Can't recommend it unless you're a total super fan of these guys, and even then it might be a tough watch for you.
Mac and Devin go to high school, but I suggest you all drop out. So, yeah.
All right, well, we'll be back. No, not just yet, but
okay.
We'll be back next week. Another episode of Moulz Mel at the movies. And get ready, folks. Cradle to the Grave, a film that myself and Mel have never seen.
True. This is true. So, that should be new, to say the least. But hopefully it's better than Mac and Devin. So, yeah. All right. Well, see him next week, I guess. And now do I hit the music?
Sure.
Okay. Here we go.
This has been Moulz and Mel at the movies. Mac and Devin Go to High School. Tune in next week for our next review of Jet Li and DMX in Cradle to the Grave. For now, this has been Moulz, and I'm joined by Mel on the #1 music, film, and entertainment review show here on Patreon.com as well as Captivate Audio. That's right, it's Moulz and Mel at the movies.
Hey, it's Mel from Rap Rankings. To hear the full episode this clip comes from and all of the other episodes, check the link in the description, stop by raprankings.com, or search Rap Rankings on your favorite podcast platform. And please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting to help us grow the channel and continue our journey as hip-hop's first and premier extreme podcast.